Are you guys doing many of these? Oh, we're live now. We can chit chat for a little bit more as people file in, but have you guys done many of these things?
No.
It's my first.
Oh, wow. Adam?
Yeah, maybe nothing quite like this. So, but
right.
a couple
this
similar.
Will be a special one. Right. All right, everybody who's filing into our virtual tasting room here. I am Matt Kettman. I'm contributing editor for Wine Enthusiast magazine, senior editor at the Santa Barbara Independent, and I've been running this series of tastings for the Santa Rita Hills Wine Alliance for the last couple months now, as we all endure this the pandemic times right now. We're trying to make the best of it and learn a lot, and we're getting a lot of good feedback from people who are really happy to actually hear directly from the winemakers through this series, which is even in small wineries, you don't always run into the winemaker in the tasting room. So I think a lot of people are getting some cool information, and they're listening from all over the country too, which is cool. I'll be watching the comments too, and if someone asks a poignant question, I might throw that back at you guys. And I know Laura Roach and some other people from Santa Rita Hills are on there to answer some questions too. This is what, our sixth one of these things, something like that. We started with Fiddlehead and Camins to Dreams. Then we had Marjoram and Lafon Winery and Dragonette and Liquid Farm. And then we had Temperance and Buscador Wines. And last week we had Greg Brewer and Ken Brown. I see Greg is watching us as I speak. And today's one I'm really excited about. We're going to do a Ciega showcase where three of the region's most renowned winemakers who are with us today: Rick Longoria from Longoria Wines, obviously, Billy Wathen from Foxen, and Adam Tolmack from the Ojai Vineyard are here to pour and taste and talk with us about the 2014 vintage that they've all made from Ciega Vineyard, and the 2017 vintage as well. Then we're going to take a week off and kind of shift to a 2-week schedule. So on August 11th, we're going to have Richard Sanford. Obviously, we all know he is Almarosa Winery, and some special guests. August 26th, we're looking for Paul Lotto and Tyler Thomas of Deerberg Winery. September 8th, we're going to have Norm Yost from Flying Goat and Karen Steinwalks from Sea Grape Wine Company. And then I'm going to fill in a bunch of these dates that are on my document here as time goes forward. So without further ado, let's welcome our all-star team here. Rick Longoria, Adam Tolmack, and Billy Wathen. We're going to taste 6 wines, which will be a record for us on this tasting series. And as I said, the star of the show today is Ciega Vineyard, which is a very special vineyard in the Santa Rita Hills. And to tell us about that is Rick Longoria, who kind of spearheaded this vineyard project and all that. So Rick, why don't you start to tell us about the vineyard? Also, just for those tasting along at home, the order we've decided to go for just because we had to pick some order is we're going to start with the 14s, and we're going to go Foxen, Ojai, and Longoria. Then we're going to switch to the 17s and do that same order. So we'll get to hear from each winemaker as we go forward. And there we go. So Rick, Ciega Vineyard, how did this happen? And how did you pick these 2 cohorts to kind of embark on this adventure with you?
Yeah. Well, story starts about 1985 when I was sourcing Chardonnay grapes from Sweeney Canyon Vineyard on the western edge of the Santa Rita Hills appellation. And so during my trips to visit the grapes there every harvest, I couldn't help but notice this beautiful mesa immediately across Sweeney Road, a couple of 100 feet up. And it had this wonderful south-facing slope, and it wasn't large. I mean, it was sort of, I could kind of wrap my head around it. You could see the borders, it's about 9 acres in size. And I just envisioned that being planted to Pinot Noir. But I didn't know who owned the property, and, so we had to wait. Fast forward about 11 years, 1996, the Marks family that owned Sweeney Canyon Vineyard invited me to a barbecue at their house right above the property there. And I met this couple, and as we were leaving, they said that they were just driving a few 100 yards away. And I said, "Oh, what property is that?" And they said, "Well, it's the one right above Sweeney." And so I finally, after all these years, met the owner and immediately proposed.
Were they farmers, or they had just invested in some land in the
No,
area?
this was kind of a weekend getaway for them. They live in the Simi Valley area.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so I immediately proposed a prospect of planting a vineyard up there, and we kind of went back and forth about how to arrange this. But finally, by 1997, Hank Klenn, the owner, agreed to pay for the establishment of the vineyard and then hand it over to me as soon as we got our first grapes. So the vineyard was planted in 1998. I picked 3 different clones: the Pomard clone, Dijon 115, and 667. And the thought there was, ultimately making wine from these grapes. And to me, a blend of clones is a lot more interesting, I think, creates a more complex wine than a single clone. So that's why I chose 3 different clones. The site, the original planting was 7 3/4 acres. I originally named it Blind Faith Vineyard, a nod to the 1960s supergroup Blind Faith that Eric Clapton was in. Mm-hmm. But also, I'd never planted a vineyard. I'd been around vineyards all my career, but I'd never planted one. And after experiencing that process, I realized what an act of faith it is to plant a vineyard, plant anything actually, because there's no guarantee that all this time and effort is going to yield a wine that you really expect. You could be disappointed. So it had 2 different meanings, So it was an act of faith to plant this vineyard. Unfortunately, around the same time, I discovered a vineyard up in Paso Robles that had the same name. So I had to kind of quickly reconsider. But I really liked the concept.
You discovered that, or they discovered you?
I discovered them. I'm pretty sure that's how it worked out. But I didn't want to abandon the concept. So I looked at the Spanish translation, Fe Ciega, and it actually, I think, worked out for the better. It has a really beautiful ring to it. And it fits in with the valley there on Santa Rosa Road, where you have vineyards like La Rinconada, La Encantada, and so forth. So it really fit well. In 2008, I expanded the vineyard by 1.25 acres on a steep hillside. I planted the Mount Eden clone, and I got cuttings from the original vines at Sanford and Benedict. So now we have 9 acres up there. It's a south-facing slope, clay soil, Monterey shale fragments, and it's on the western end of the Santa Rita Hills Appalachian, so it's a little cooler. Standing on top of the vineyard, you can see this sort of circle of really incredible vineyards. Directly across from Fe Ciega is La Rinconada, La Encantada. To the east, Sanford and Benedict, Fiddlesticks. And then on our side of the river, which is north of the river, we have Mont Carmel, Rita's Crown, and Sea Smoke.
We call that the Pinot Bowl.
The Pinot Bowl. Yeah.
The Pinot Bowl.
But anyway, you planted a tiny bit of Chardonnay too, didn't you, at Fe Ciega?
I did. Unfortunately, that got hit rather hard by Pierce's disease, because it was on the lower part, close. In fact, it was adjacent to Sweeney Canyon Vineyard, and we've had to pull out the vines. That's just had a great loss there.
Right.
But
and so then, how did you enlist these guys in the cause?
Well, my first harvest was 2001. I think we got 5 tons off the 7 3/4 acres. But as the vineyard matured, there were more grapes, more than I could handle. So I started to consider selling some grapes. And I wanted to sell grapes to winemakers that had a track record of making great wine in this area. And also, they had the philosophy of respecting a vineyard site and not sort of making a cookie cutter type of Pinot Noir out of any individual vineyard. So, and also just guys that I knew well and enjoyed being with and working with. And so it was very easy to choose Adam and Bill. And when they came up to look at the vineyard, I remember Adam's first reaction was like, sign me up. I mean, he was not there longer than 10 minutes and he said, I'm in. So,
well, yeah, I remember that actually. We talked about your vineyard at Jim Glendenin and Bob Lindquist's 50th birthday party. And
that's right.
And I remember at the time at the party, I said, I have no interest in buying more fruit. I've got plenty of fruit, but I'll come out and take a look at it. And then when I did come out and look at it, it was like instantaneous. I'll take some.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's very
well.
challenging to get to plant new. I mean, planting a vineyard anywhere is challenging, but on that kind of coveted spot of the Santa Rita Hills, there's not a lot of room for anything else. I mean, you identified that land early on, and then you just had the luck of going to the right party, basically, to score it. I mean, it's a pretty amazing story.
I was very, very lucky, and it's just been a wonderful experience. The wines have proven to be beyond my expectations. For both myself and I think Adam and Bill. It's a little gem of a vineyard within the AVA, and I just a stroke of luck.
Yeah, Rick, when you planted this, there was only Mount Carmel for Pinot Noir on the north side of the river. And during that end of the 20th century, the late 90s, Ciega, Sea Smoke, maybe Wenzel, maybe Kargasagi went in.
Yeah. Well, the late 90s, was the period of huge expansion of Pinot Noir in Santa Rita Hills.
La Rinconada, Encantada.
Exactly. Yeah. So we were right there, right at the very beginning of this really big expansion of Pinot Noir.
Right. Billy, I've already poured myself some of this wine. So if you're tasting at home and tasting with us, might as well pour some in your glass. I know you've been looking, I've written some stories about Sea Smoke, and they all said that Billy Wathen was the guy that was like, you got to plant on that side of the river, and it was hard to get. So I know you've been looking at this north side of the San Ynez River for a long time, Billy. So this was probably right up your alley when Rick came knocking.
Yeah, I think Bruno and I discovered Ciega site.
You did?
No, it's about a mile west of Sea Smoke, which is preferable, and it's a beautiful situation. The vineyard is situated beautifully, and it just is like a perfect spot. Yeah, and it's laid out perfect. It's not very high density, so it's kind of just the right size for farming, and that's so important. You get into these really tight quarters these days, and it gets really hard and expensive to farm.
Yeah. And just the three of you that make this wine every vintage?
Yeah, just the three of us.
Yeah, great.
And
so Billy, tell us.
I came on board in 2011.
Okay.
So 14 was still a learning curve for me.
Okay.
Still learning about the vineyard. It's a very hard vineyard to get out to for me because it's a long way to Lompoc for me, and then another 9 miles back the other direction. So if I had a helicopter, it'd make things really easier.
And so tell us about this wine, the 14, and what you
14 was the kind of the bologna of the 3-year drought sandwich. So the middle year of the drought, and yields weren't very high at all. And I would have liked to get this just a bit more riper, but I was too paranoid about the upcoming weather, so made the decision to pick. But I'm happy with it's probably 13 alcohol, and I'm happy with that. And it's showing those telltale kind of always kind of black fruit, and that little bit of, it's almost like sage or rosemary. Maybe a little bit like when you're out walking the vineyard, kicking around some tar weed, you get a little bit of that oily smell.
Is there something you've learned over the years? I mean, you work with tons of different vineyards all over the county. Is there something special you've learned about this vineyard that you try to replicate every year, or is it?
I'm actually able to start playing around with a little bit of whole cluster, especially on some of the elevated blocks, the Mount Eden and a little bit of the Pomard. And that's been a little bit of fun, and it's still a learning curve, still tinkering.
And that's just because that sunshine is cooking those stems well enough on those slopes?
Or maybe not all the way, but it doesn't matter because I'm getting, in a small proportion, I'm getting what I want out of those whole clusters.
Mm-hmm. Right.
More substance and greenness.
And how do you guys split it up? Whoever wants to answer this question. I mean, do you each get a little bit of each block, or do you guys have your coveted corners, or how's that work?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, no, I wanted to be fair to all of us. So there are four blocks. So each one of us gets our percentage of each block.
Right.
The exception is block R, which is the smallest. It's 1 acre. And it's the most meager producing block. So it'd be hard to divvy up 1.5 tons. It just logistically would be kind of difficult. So I get olive R, and for the first several years, I was getting all of block M, the Mount Eden clone. But now all of us share that. So I'm trying to make it equitable so that we're all working with the same fruit.
Right.
It's been awesome.
I think they've been happy with that arrangement.
Yeah.
Oh, very.
Yeah.
No, it's been terrific, Rick. It's just been amazing to work with you and with Bill, and mostly your intent to make sure that we all get our kind of our fair share of each of the clones. It's a joy to be able to work with the vineyard.
All right, Adam,
Thank you.
now that you're talking, I'm pouring your 2014 too. So
Okay.
You guys can jump into that.
Yeah.
And Adam, how long have you been working with the vineyard? Did you come in before Billy?
Yeah, 2003 was the first vintage. And
was it just the two of you for a while then, basically?
Until the 2011. Yeah.
Until this guy broke in somehow.
Yeah, but I was super happy to.
Well, I was on a sea smoke deal.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, and so I mean, I think it's been pointed out that my approach is really actually not very dissimilar to these guys, but I do like to pick a little less ripe. I like to see the alcohols a little lower. I'm really seeking out the kind of the more savory aspects of Pinot Noir, and so it just has a slightly different stance. Tasting all three of the wines, to me they're all terrific. Just happen to be different, and that's really shows the strength of the vineyard. The vineyard is just so. It has such distinction. There's there's that sort of the wild herbs aspect that Bill was talking about that seems to show through every year of Ciega, an animaliness that's just you just don't get that out of other Pinot Noir vineyards. And it's very much the vineyard. It's not really the winemaking. It's just the grapes talking to us. And so my approach is not pick it too ripe. I can't quite remember what year I started using some whole clusters, but I use a small amount of whole clusters in the ferments each year these days, and the 14 would have had some for sure. And so we're using, 15% maximum in the overall blend. So just a small amount, but I like what that does for the wine. There's something about the stem tannins that kind of add a little bit of thickness to the palate that I enjoy. But other than that, it's pretty simple winemaking, mostly destemmed, ferments in small open top fermenters, pressed off into mostly older barrels. Maybe we use 25 to 30% new barrels in our blend. But every year is distinctive. 14 was, it was definitely one of those drought years. It was, vexing to be picking it. I think we picked it in August in 14. Or
we did. Yeah, I have our harvest dates. We started August 22nd. And actually picked the entire vineyard in 2 days. We were really in a hurry to beat that heat because we were facing 95-degree heat.
I have August 23rd.
Right. So Adam, you got it on the 22nd. And I got part of mine on the 22nd and then part on the 23rd. I think Billy, you got yours entirely on the 23rd.
Yes.
Do you all use native yeast, or are you using some commercial yeast for this?
I'm commercial. Strictly
Same
commercial.
for me, commercial.
Yeah, and so these two wines, they are commercial yeast. In 2019, I've kind of gone to using native yeast, and so I'll get when I do my sampling of grapes, I'll bring the grapes home and then start a culture, and then I'm using that to start the ferments. That's a new thing for 2019, and the results were, I don't know, it's all about the same really flavor wise, but it's sort of satisfying not to have another input. That's for me, it's more, it feels good to just have the vineyard speak itself and not have another input. I'm not sure that makes a big difference. I think it's a little riskier, but I try to use kind of every caution I can to do this, and so so the wine comes out right. But it's something of interest. But for me personally, I don't know that it makes a huge difference, other than it feels good to have everything come just from Ciega.
Right. All right, Rick, let's move to your wine here. This is Rick Longoria.
Showing well, Adam.
Yeah, they're all showing quite well.
Yeah. Yeah, well, pretty similar processing. We do destem 100%. I don't use any stems. I've found that Ciega has enough structure and tannins, I feel, on its own, that it kind of doesn't really need any additional sort of tannins.
Rick, do you use stems in another vineyard for Pinot?
No, I've experimented with that with some other vineyards, but the vineyards I work with, Pinot Noir vineyards I work with, typically are like Ciega in their structure, and I haven't found it to be really advantageous to use any kind of percentage of stem inclusion. But we destem into small 1.5 ton fermenters. We punch down 2 or 3 times a day. Average maceration time is probably about 12 to 14 days. Press off. We go to French oak barrels for about 15 months. The new oak kind of varies, and I was kind of looking at my notes on this 2014. I used 40% new oak, which is a lot higher than normal. I don't know how that happened.
Rick, can I say something? That I bought barrels on a projection for the vintage, and the vintage was really light, and so my Ciega was about 40% also.
That probably is what happened to me as well. Yeah, and I've got such a small program that one extra barrel all of a sudden takes it from 30 to 40%. In the blend. So, and that's it. So it's a really simple, hands-off type of winemaking, and I just let the vineyard speak for itself. And what I have found through all 3 of these is the incredible vineyard character comes through. I think that's the dominant thing about all 3 wines, is that it is Ciega with just sort of subtle nuances between the 3 of them.
That's so true. There's a dense elegance in the middle of the palate on all these wines.
And I definitely get that.
Yeah.
The sagebrushy thing, and then some of that game character, the animalistic thing that Adam was talking about too. I mean, there's a wild character to it, which is, I always find intriguing in wine, and that sage is a common element you get kind of in a lot of Pinots from around the entire Central Coast, but it's really pronounced here and somewhat unique as well at the same time. It has its own twist to it. So. Yeah. Great. And of all the vintages you've made from here, Rick, do you have a favorite? Rick, did he pause?
Matt,
We lost you for a second there, Rick. Do you have a favorite vintage from Ciega? Or no, we really lost him. How about you guys? There we go. Do you have a favorite Ciega vintage you've made so far? The next one?
19 was classic.
Too many to count.
So happy with
which one?
So happy with 18 and 19 because they were very comfortable vintages, no extreme heat waves. We just kind of rolled on, and we're patient with the vineyard, and they're really beautiful.
I agree. Yeah, those were two excellent vintages for me. The best since 10 and 11, which I like both a lot as well.
I've started to get a lot of the 18s into taste, and I've been pretty impressed. And 17, which we're about to taste now, and it just didn't really affect your guys' wine so much, but I have noticed 17 had some more variability in a lot of the wines, just because I know there was kind of heat up and down all summer, and then there was that heat spike at the end, which we can talk about in a little bit. But to come off of 17, which is really the first vintage where, and I've been reviewing the wine since 2014. It's the first vintage where I've been like, this is a little bit weird. But the 2018s that I've tasted already are like kind of blowing my mind, and people seem to think the 19s are even better. So should be a good couple of years here coming up. But, so speaking of 17, let's hop into the Foxen Sachiega17. And then Billy or Rick or Adam, whoever wants to talk about the nature of this vintage in general. I guess, Billy, why don't you talk about it and how it reflected?
Everything was going fine until that Labor Day weekend, and the shit hit the fan. And we were done with Santa Maria. And if this heat wave would have hit Santa Maria at that time, it would have cooked everything. And we were done with most of Santa Rita, except for Ciega and La Encantada. And it was amazing how those two sites held up during that heat wave, because we ended up picking after the heat wave, and it didn't seem to affect any of the numbers or physical structure of the berries at all. So faith in the site, it was good.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Either you guys have any? I mean, first of all, Adam, who is your security guard?
Oh,
yeah, the harvest dates.
Yeah,
harvest dates in 17 were September 7th through the 10th, and so yeah, it's right after that Labor Day hot spell. But as you said, the vines held up really well. There was no excessive dehydration, no raisoning, so it was a very nice harvest.
Right. Great. Adam, let's talk about your Ciega. Well, actually, first of all, Billy, anything you did different with 2017?
No, this was still 100% whole berry destemmed, and we're usually shooting at about 30% new French oak, open top fermenters, punch downs a couple times a day. We don't work at night. 10 to 14 day ferments, press to barrel.
You try any whole cluster in this vintage?
No whole cluster in this. Yeah. We started tinkering around in 18.
Mm-hmm. How much new oak?
This is probably 30%.
Mm-hmm. Great.
You get that sage in there, just.
And it's well, your percentages alcohol-wise are, you had a 12, 9, 13. This is a whole percentage up, but it still fits right in the same character. And, I think it's a good blend. It's a good blend.
Yeah, it's a good blend. 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 It's a good blend.
What would you aim for? Like what do you aim for, bricks wise or alcohol wise, or you just aim for taste on the vine, and that's when you
We
guys
start
decide?
we start thinking about it after 22 bricks, and we'd
Mhm.
like to be kind of plus minus 23. And I think that's right for the site, for the pH and the TA. So you really don't have to do anything with those grapes when they come in.
What's the latest you guys have picked off here?
Date wise or bricks wise?
Date wise, I guess.
Oh, sometime in second week of September, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. Is Rick here with us still, or?
Rick is in and out.
Okay.
Well, I am, but I can't see Matt.
Oh.
But yeah, no, harvest in 2017 started on September 7th and finished on the 10th. So
Mhm.
just a few days after Labor Day weekend. Did you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we got
We
that.
all-
Yeah.
Okay.
Matt was asking about what was the latest year that we ever picked Ciega, and I can't quite remember.
Oh, I can't remember, but it was around the third week of September, like the 21st, 23rd, I think is the latest I can remember.
That's before my time.
But as to which vintage,
Yeah, Tanner, 11 maybe.
Well, I would have guessed 11.
Yeah, I think you're right. 11 probably.
And it's not like we're all waiting for 26 to
that's
28 bricks.
Yeah.
Right.
No.
Adam,
No, that's
let's.
again, we all pick within that 22 and a half to 25, 24 and a half range. And it's pretty consistent every year.
Great. I'm moving to your wine, Adam, the
Okay.
2017.
Yeah, and I think what the surprising thing for me in 17 was, we did have this pretty wild weather, and we were just, fairly nervous about the whole thing because we had this incredible heat wave, and it was so gratifying to get the Ciega in at good sugars, the sugars that we were desiring to get, and then to have the wine turn out so well. I mean, I feel like all three of these 17s are very strong wines, and especially strong for the vintage. It just worked out well there. I think Santa Maria was riper a little sooner, and it got more of the heat. At least for me, the Ciega turned out, really just super well. And I generally, I kind of like better than our Santa Maria fruit from the vintage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What problems are, just generally speaking, if a vintage does get too hot, other than the kind of the riper flavors, the cooked flavors of fruit, what are other problems you run into in the winery with hotter, riper grapes?
Well, I mean, the acidity can suffer, but I mean, we're not picking at super high sugars, so I don't know. This Ciega, kind of a fly in here. Ciega works out, generally works out just really well every year. And that's kind of the beauty of Western Santa Rita is even when it's hotter than hell everywhere else, it's just a little less hot there on the western edge. Right.
Well, Rick's internet is not it's not the strongest today. It doesn't look like.
Yeah.
You never want to be in a position to have to doctor any fruit. It's just a pain in the ass, and I've never had to do that with any Ciega fruit, and it's just been great.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you guys, I mean, you work on it as even picking wise, you're basically working on this site as a team essentially. You're picking within a few days of each other or a day of each other. Sounds like. I mean, it is really. Do you guys know of any other situation like this where one guy is controlling it and only two other people are buying fruit and it works like a team like this?
Matt. Is Matt still there?
Yeah.
I can hear you, Rick. I can't see you really.
Matt, there's a lot of respect.
I can't hear Matt. I can't even see Matt.
There's a lot of respect for each person's style and direction going into the harvest, and that's all part of it.
Right.
Yeah, and
I think
that's very much Rick's, his direction, is to be super equitable and try to accommodate the two of us with his plans, and it works out really well. There's a real advantage of being a small size vineyard, a 9-acre vineyard, in that we can really get it right when we want it, and it seems to Rick's right there. Working it, and we really seem to capture it pretty much when we want.
great. Well, it's unfortunate because we're about to move to Rick's wine, but he can't hear me or see me, and he's frozen in my screen.
Well, Rick is frozen in my screen. Can you hear me, Rick?
Ricky?
I can hear you, but I can't hear Matt.
How about I ask
can't
a
hear
question? And okay, so the question for Rick is, tell us about the 2017 of his wine.
Yeah.
Can someone relay that?
Adam,
Okay,
can you hear me?
I can hear you, Rick. And so Matt was saying, let's
Yeah,
go
but
on.
I can't.
Can you hear me, Rick? Oh.
Yes, I can hear you,
Okay.
but I can't hear Matt.
Okay. Well, Matt was saying that we're
You
going to
want
go
to forward the questions to me?
Yeah. Yeah. Matt was asking, it was asked you to talk about your 2017.
17, sure. Well, yeah, this we were lucky and acted quickly to pick these grapes at really beautiful sugar levels and acid and pH. Nothing new in terms of the winemaking, the same as 2014, 100% D-stem, small open top tanks, pretty much the same procedure, another 15 months in French oak barrels, and only about 20% of the barrels were new in 2017. And exactly the same type of winemaking. And I think it just represents the vintage. The vintage was, the riper grape. I think there's a little bit more complexity to the 17 over the 14. Just a nuance that riper grapes have that less ripe grapes, sometimes just haven't fully developed all the flavor nuances. And so it's a robust wine. The alcohol in the 2017 is 14.6, which is kind of on the upper end for my style. I don't like to approach 15% alcohol in any wine, let alone Pinot Noir. But at 14.6, I think it's pretty well balanced.
I get.
And again, I can't hear Matt, so I don't.
I'm going to talk real quick and say that I especially on Adam and Rick's, I'm getting like a little more purple flower kind of thing. I'm like almost a lavender on the nose of both of these wines, which is I always like and kind of an interesting twist. I don't get it as much on the Foxen, but I don't know. Maybe Rick, if you can translate that to Rick. It's a weird game of telephone, virtual tasting telephone.
Yeah. So
there's Matt.
Yeah. Matt was saying that Rick, he gets a little more. What was that? What were you saying? That
Lavender.
Like a purple flower, like a lavender type thing. Yeah.
Purple flower and lavender, and in your Pinot and in my Pinot, and maybe a little less of that particular character in Bill's wine. I was just going to throw in that I kind of agree with. I don't think ours is quite as ripe. It's sugar alcohol wise, but I feel like all three of the Pinot Noirs from 17 do have a sort of a little more fullness than the 14s had, and so I find them really pleasing.
All right, And you think that lends well
Yeah,
to
I
ageability
agree.
too? With the
What's that?
Yeah, I
ageability?
think all of us have said that we would have wished to have picked the 2014s just a little bit riper, but
We were gun shy.
they still show a wonderful character of the vineyard, and that's the thing. I mean, we're not corporate type winemakers. We kind of go with the flow of what's happening and weather-wise, and also what's happening in the cellar with other fermentations and all that. So, but that's the thing about a great vineyard site. It has a lot of flexibility, so that if you kind of miss your target, it's still going to make a really nice wine just because of the caliber of the fruit.
Can you hear me now, Rick? I don't know. Can you guys relay, Adam or Billy, relay this in? My question for Rick is, has
Again, I
having
can't hear Matt.
Right. Has having essentially an estate vineyard made him a better winemaker or more conscious of things that maybe he didn't realize before? I mean, I know he's worked with a bunch of properties, but
okay.
I get Adam.
Yeah. Hey, so Rick, Matt was asking, having essentially an estate vineyard, has that, helped you grow in your winemaking?
Well translated.
Yeah. Well, I mean, definitely, it's made me appreciate, all growers more because, being a grower, really does, it's a humbling experience. And so when you look at other vineyards, you have empathy for what other grape growers are going through. So it definitely has done that for me. But yeah, I think it's just kind of just sharpened my my focus in terms of all vineyards. I mean, having a vineyard, knowing a vineyard so well, like my Ciega, really enables me to look at other vineyards a little bit more carefully from that perspective of a grape grower as well as a winemaker. So, yeah, so I think it's been a great help to my winemaking, also having an estate vineyard.
And then to either you, Adam, or Billy, both of you guys have worked with so many different vineyards around Santa Barbara County. How has this project kind of been special or opened your eyes to different things? Working the three of you more or less together on this project.
Well, for me, I'm in Long Cantata a lot, and it's always special for me to look across the river and up the mesa and look at Ciega from that end of the Santa Rita Hills. And you can see what a great situation it is. And it's nice to be able to visualize that from far away and to be able to be part of that and make wine out of that. And as far as Rick having the estate vineyard, an estate vineyard brings a lot more passion in your winemaking life than just going to other vineyards that you don't have control of.
Right. Adam, you've enjoyed this project, I imagine, and
Oh yeah. No, it's been really, at the time in 2003, I was, I was full up, had many vineyards to deal with, and it was complete impulsiveness on my part to say, oh yeah, this is beautiful, we have to do this too. But I've been happy ever since. It's been a delight to work with and see the nitty gritty that Rick has to go through in growing the vineyard. But it is it's a little bit of a blessed site. It really is. Some sites just the grapes sort of grow and you sort of make the wine, it's really good. And there's other sites where you just have to fight to try to get the quality that you want, and that's not the case with the Ciega.
Yeah, you had mentioned something before we started this, where the vineyard will look like it's about to grow a lot, and then it'll kind of slow down right when you want it to.
Right. I mean, it really, it's the soil that's there that's really important, and and the conditions there. It's very self-regulating, and so that's super gratifying.
Right. Can you ask Rick if we've tasted all the wines. I think we've covered what we need to cover. Can you ask Rick if he has any parting shots or anything he want to say about this?
Okay, Rick. So Matt's asking, do you have any parting remarks from tasting all 6 of these wines?
Well, I just think, just because I think we're all pretty good winemakers, that we're consistent in our style. So, the 2014 and 2017 versions of each of our wines are consistent. I mean, they show our style. So I think it just shows that we're pretty confident in what we're doing. And but not at the expense of sort of covering up the character of the vineyard. So the vineyard still shines through, I think, in all the wines. But I'm very happy with all the wines, and just incredibly pleased to be working with both Adam and Billy. And it's been a wonderful experience.
Great. Well, with that, we can kind of wrap this one up. It's been we've tasted 6 wines today, which is more than usual. 2 vintages, the 2014 and the 2017 from Ciega Vineyard, with Billy Watson from Foxen, Adam Tolmack from the Ojai Vineyard, and Rick Longoria from Longoria Cellars. And this was his idea for doing this, which I thought was a great idea, and actually the panel I've been most excited for during this whole series. It's unfortunate Rick's lost us a little bit there on the audio side of things and video side of things, but I think our little game of virtual tasting telephone worked well enough, and we got to hear from Rick what we wanted to hear. So thank you all for watching, and join us again on August 11th when we have Richard Sanford and some special guests. And there'll be more tastings like this into the future, probably throughout the year. So thank you all again for joining. Thank you, Adam, Billy, and someone tell Rick thank you.
Thank you, Matt. And thank you, Laura.
Yeah, thanks, Matt.
Yeah, and I hope to see you guys in the future in person.
Okay.
One of these days.
Yeah.